Hey guys, how's it going? Katsu here, and today I want to show you a tutorial on how to create a procedural planetary nebula. Um, it, a planetary nebula is quite complex in that there are several different ways in which you can go in designing this. For this tutorial, I will do it procedurally with principal volume in Eevee. And I will try to explain the different aspects of how you can control the elements of that nebula so that you can further customize it according to your own uh, creativeness or according to your own needs, right? So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to take my um, the default cube and just as per usual, I'm gonna delete it and create it again. And I'm going to scale it by 10 so that it can be a 20-meter cube. And let me go ahead and add my screencast. There you go. And also for this, I am going to go into volumetrics and select volumetric shadows. I'm going to go into color management, look and select high contrast. And I think that's it for the time being, and I'll select some other configuration settings as we go on. So I'm going to go ahead and split my viewport here. I'm going to change it to the viewport shading, and I'm going to change here my editor type to a shader editor. Normally, what I would do is that I would have the shader in a different monitor just because of the amount of nodes that I will end up using. So for this case, in order to show it on the screen, I will just split it in two. So I am going to select my cube and create a new material. And I'm going to delete my principal BSDF. And I am going to add a principal volume, which I'm going to plug here to the volume part. If you don't have the Node Wrangler enabled, I highly suggest you go ahead and do that by going into Edit Preferences and selecting the Node Wrangler. And so I'm going to start by explaining how you can create the shapes of the nebula. And the best way that I've found out that you can create or control the shape is via a gradient texture, which you will plug into your density. And I will hit Control T so that I can get my mapping and texture coordinates. I am going to change my mapping to a texture. My location, I'm going to set it to 0.5 and my scale also to 0.5. And finally, I'm going to change the gradient texture to spherical. And that will give me a sphere, which will be my basis in order to be able to work with this. Now I'm going to delete the light source and I'm going to temporarily add a sun lamp, and I am also going to just bring the background back to black so that I can have a better visualization on my sphere. And perfect. Now, so what you can do here, and this is where I'm going to start explaining the different nodes that you can add and how those will affect the final result. You can add a math node into your density, change it to multiply, and this value can act as the strength of your density. So if I change it, let's say to 2, you will see it that it starts to get more dense. If I go to 20, etc., you'll see it that it will increase the density. So for the time being, I will leave it at 2. And now, here's what we're gonna do. the next thing is, okay, so how can I change this shape in order to start getting some more customizable shapes? The way I do this is by duplicating my mapping and gradient texture, and then I will add a multiply node here. I'll plug it to the value, and I will also add a subtract node, and I am going to plug this output here to the subtract node. So now that I've done that, if I start messing around, well, I'm going to change this generated, I'm going to plug it here. There you go. Now you're not seeing anything here because the two mapping between the information between these two mapping nodes is the same. But if I start working, or if I start modifying the scale on my second groups, you'll see that you will start to create some different shapes, and you can start customizing that. For example, if I want a ring here, I can just work with my z-axis, and I can start tailoring it to whatever I want, or whatever, whichever shape I want to do. So as you can see here right now, I'm just using the based on this axis right here. I can also change the x axis to make it bigger or smaller, and so you can start working with that in order to create or generate any kind of base shape that you would want to do. So what you can do afterwards, and this is part of the if you look into the a reference image of a planetary nebula, let me go ahead and show you an example of a, let's say, I think this is the Helix Nebula. Let me go ahead and share that with you real quick. So this is the Helix Nebula, and as you can see here, we can separate, or we can detect some different shapes. We have like an outer ring right here. We might have an inner ring, and we have a central expansion sphere with a oxygen, based on the color, it should be oxygen gas. So we can start, what we can do is we can generate three different shapes, one for the external ring, one for the inner ring, and one for that central sphere. And then we can start, we can add some texture to that nebulosity in order to get that final result. So let me go ahead and return back to Blender. There you go. So I'm going to put this reference image right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with the outer ring first. So for the outer ring, I'm going to increase the X and Z axis. Actually, I might do something like this perhaps. And let's tinker with it a little bit. There you go, something like this might work. Okay, perfect. So I have this outer ring right now. And then what you can do is that you can add an additional mapping node here before these two. I'm going to disconnect this here, and I'm going to add this vector right here. There you go. Now, by doing this, what you will accomplish, let me just reset this back to normal. There you go. So now that you have this mapping node plugged here, you can scale it. For instance, in this case, I would like to scale it down a little bit. Let's say 0.8. No. There you go. Let's see here. Oh, so I need to change this to texture. That's right. That's why it was not working. There you go. So I scaled it down to half, in this case 0.5, so you can start further customizing this shape. And the other thing that you can do is that you can rotate this complete, or this elemental shape, so to speak. So I would like, let's say, to move it like 45 degrees perhaps. And then with these values, I can move it up higher here. There you go. I don't know if 0.5 might work a little bit more. Something like this perhaps. And I'm going to move it a little bit on the x-axis. There you go. And let's increase the size a little bit more and position it better. Perhaps something like this. There you go. So now that I have this base outer ring, what I can do is I can just duplicate this setup right here and decrease the scale so that I can generate an inner ring. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. So I'm going to duplicate all of this. I'm going to plug my generated texture here. There you go. And now I have two options. Since the colors of the nebula are different, what I like to do is I like to add a separate principled volume and combine them via an add shader. And I can plug this into here. Plug this into here. There you go. And send this over to this density. Perfect. Now, in this case, just in order to visualize or to work specifically with this part right here first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this directly into this volume temporarily. Oh, I need to add both. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this by 0 so that this will not show any kind of density. I'm going to plug this here. There you go. So right now I'm just going to be looking at this part right here. I'm going to duplicate this and add a value of 2. There you go. Now for this inner ring, what I could do is just decrease the scale a little bit, or I can just set this as a sphere, a base sphere. Let me put this and just reset this. There you go. This is going to be 0.5 and 0.5 scale, and this will be the same. There you go. Okay. Now, since this is going to be an inner ring, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease this a little bit. Okay, I need to change this to texture as well. I need to change this to texture. There you go. This has to change to a multiply by 2. There you go. That's right. Perfect. Okay. Now, as I was saying, I could create an inner ring here. This is going to be a little bit more roundish in shape. Perhaps something like this. Again, this is all going to be based on several factors. One of those factors being your preference, and also depending on the reference images that you are selecting. So I'm going to bring it in a little bit closer here. Just a tad. I think this looks fine, I guess. And I'm going to increase the density of this first node so that I can have the other shape. And finally, I'm going to decrease the scale here. There you go. Now, instead of doing this like 3 times, what you could also do is add a input value node, plug it into your scale, and that way you can consistently change your scale here and then it's just going to be a matter of positioning your inner ring just in the right place. So I'm going to add it here in the z-axis, move it a little bit like here. There you go. And again, in 3D, you can see here that this inner ring, even though it looks like a ring from this position, you can move it like around, and this still is generating like a kind of a sphere. Perfect. So that's going to be like our second shape. And finally, I'm just going to add like a base sphere just inside here. And I might want to fill in these spaces right here at the end just by messing with the size one final time. So for the final sphere in here, you can just take the mapping and gradient texture. I might want to duplicate this as well and plug it in here and plug my texture generate coordinate in here, plug it into here. There you go. And I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to add it in here, and I'm going to create another add shader in here, plug this bad boy in here, and there you go. Now we can see the sphere right here. Let me just make sure it is, in this case, since I'm going to be playing with the complete sphere, I might want to, let me just make sure that, perfect. I might want to just duplicate this node since it's going to be the same scale. And there you go. So that's my inner sphere right here. Perfect. Okay. Nice. And so there you have it. We now have this, our basic shape. As I mentioned, I might want to just mess a little bit with this x-axis right here. There you go. Perfect. Okay. So again, just to summarize here, the way we are controlling our shapes is with a gradient texture, a mapping node, and plug it into our texture coordinate. And if you want to create rings or make it a little bit more hollow, you can add a second group and just subtract one from the other. And the important part here that I noticed is that you have to multiply it by 2 so that you can start messing around with these values in order to start creating that hollow object. And finally, you can use your multiply nodes in order to increase or decrease the density strength. So that's going to be like the first part. What I'm going to do, I think, because of the amount of time that this will take, is that I'm going to separate this into 3 different videos. The next video we will talk about the texture of the nebula, and finally I'll make a part 3 where we customize the color for each of the components of our nebula. So I hope you like this video. If you do, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. If you're interested in this, I can go ahead and share this Blender file so that you can tinker with it. If you would like that, just let me know in the comments. And I'll see you soon for the second part of this video. Once again, my name is Kaetsu. Thank you very much for watching, and have yourselves a great day.